pulled up and they just shot him. And they just ran.
He was doing his laundry when he heard knocking at the door, a group of teens fleeing gunfire. And among those teens, a 16-year-old boy with gunshot wounds injured near Jane and Finch. It was one of 3 shootings in the city overnight, just hours before an announcement about Project Community Space. That's the multi-million-dollar effort meant to address gun violence in priority neighborhoods. Let's go live to Ali Chiasson, who's near Jane and Finch tonight in that community. And Ali, the project started after a violent summer. Here we are 15 weeks later, and the shootings continue.
That's right, and one of the latest happening right where I'm standing. The 16-year-old boy who was injured in this drive-by shooting last night is expected to live. There have been over 460 shootings in this city this year, involving over 700 shooting victims. Meanwhile, the police say this Project Community Space has been a success, and they would like to keep going.
They just bust in, and I was so scared. It was like, my friend got shot, and they bust the door in.
Cody Lamb lives just up the street from where last night's drive-by took place at Jane and Firgrove. That's where a car pulled up on a group of young men as they crossed the street. Bullets sprayed out the window, hitting a 16-year-old boy multiple times. His friends carried him as he fell in and out of consciousness to the first door that opened, Cody Lamb's house.
He told us just a silver car, like they pull up and they just shot him. He got shot twice. One went through his foot and one is through his chin.
So were you helping him? What were you doing before
I was like, gave him the paper towel and then my uncle came and I helped him like put the pressure on the shot.
Lamb and his roommates turned the vestibule into a makeshift triage until first responders arrived. I think I still see some blood here.
Oh yeah, that was definitely this.
Lamb lives in one of the city's priority neighborhoods, as defined by the police. He knows it, but hasn't ever felt it.
I heard a couple like gun shooting over here around the neighborhood, but like it doesn't affect me a lot. But like I saw like in real life, like, I'm pretty scared now.
While officers investigate the circumstances of that shooting and to others that happened overnight, Superintendent Stephen Watts was at Toronto Police Headquarters touting the results of a 15-week police crackdown on gun violence.
Our specialized approach allowed officers to make hundreds of arrests.
They focused on areas known to have gang violence and were able to crack down on reoffenders.
Of the 463 arrests made, 97 of these individuals were out on firearm-related bails.
Superintendent Watts also acknowledged that enforcement does not address the root causes of gun violence. For that, more work needs to be done.
It will be the community that will end up assisting us to solve these shootings. That is the reality.
Sometimes it's the communities that become first responders.
It's what I do though. Like I see someone needs help, I help them.
So we haven't yet received an update on this drive-by shooting investigation. The police haven't released a suspect or a vehicle description yet. As for Project Community Space, the high rate of shootings actually continued throughout its 15-week duration. So we haven't seen really a dip in the shooting occurrences, but police say they have had a higher success rate in solving recent shootings. Apparently, in the next couple of weeks, we'll hear from Police Chief Mark Saunders with more stats from the project, and he will announce, apparently, that he would like to see Project Community Space, or at least an iteration of it or a version of it, be made permanent. Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. One of 2 teens accused of killing a Hamilton High School student has been cleared of first-degree murder charges. In October, Devin Brachy-Selby was fatally stabbed outside his high school. The 14-year-old had been bullied for months. Ellen Morrow was at the courthouse today and has more.
There was a lot of emotion as the 18-year-old left the courtroom this morning. He was embraced by his family and friends and escorted out of this courthouse in Hamilton, arm in arm with his father. Now, he had been held for more than 2 months on a first-degree murder charge in the death of Devin Selby, who was stabbed to death outside of his high school in October. October. He is no longer facing that charge. That charge has been withdrawn. He is now facing lesser charges related to events in the minutes before Devin Selvey was killed, but not the murder itself. Those charges include assault with a weapon and administering a noxious substance. CBC News previously reported that the 18-year-old was involved in an altercation in the minutes before Selvey was killed, where he allegedly sprayed bear mace at a family friend of the Selvey family. Now again, a lot of emotion as he was led out of this courthouse today, released on a lengthy set of conditions under the supervision of his mother and father, and we spoke to his lawyer after his appearance. Here's what she had to say.
He's spending time with his family now. He's been improperly in custody for 2 months, shuffled between 3 different institutions. He has spent significant time in segregation, so right now he's just looking forward to going home with his family, as he should be.
Now, the 18-year-old was arrested in October alongside his 14-year-old brother. The 14-year-old remains in custody. He is still facing a charge of first-degree murder. Police allege that he is the one who stabbed Devin Selvey in the back outside of his high school in broad daylight in October. So a lot of emotion for the 18-year-old's family today, and emotion for the family of Devin Selvey. His mother, Sherry Ann, was outside of this courthouse this morning. She did not want to speak to us, too distraught, instead being embraced by a friend outside here as the 18-year-old was appearing inside the courtroom. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Hamilton.
Toronto police are hoping you can help them track down a woman who stole a dog after its owner suffered a medical emergency at a subway station. This is Charlie. He was taken back in October at Kipling subway station. His owner, a 45-year-old woman, suffered a medical episode and went unconscious. When she came to, Charlie was gone. Police say this woman took Charlie. She's described as between 5'2" to 5'5", about 100 pounds, wearing black aviator sunglasses, a purple jacket, and blue jeans. She was carrying 2 black backpacks and a black bag covered in white stars. Anyone with information is asked to call police. Get ready to pay more to ride the rocket next year. The TTC is proposing a fare increase for certain forms of payment. If you use cash and or buy individual Presto tickets, those are staying at about $3.25 for adults. But using your Presto card will go up by a dime to $3.20, and a monthly Presto pass will jump nearly $5 to $156. Senior and youth fares will also go up by 10 cents regardless of how you pay. If approved at a board meeting on Monday, the changes would take effect March 1st, and the TTC expects to generate more than $31 million.
It's no secret finding a place to live in the GTA is tough, and now the Ontario government is saying give co-ownership a try. Coming up, we'll take you through this Mississauga home built to be shared.
Parents, get ready. For the 3rd week in a row, teachers will hold a one-day walkout. Wednesday's strike will not affect Toronto schools this time, but will other boards in the GTA. Here's what you need to know. The following boards will take part in the one-day strike at high schools, both the York Region and York Catholic boards, as well as the Halton District School Board. Secondary school teachers at the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board will also go on strike on Wednesday, but there is a chance the strike could be called off. The OSSTF and the province will hold negotiations on Monday and Tuesday of next week. If no deal is reached in those days, the strike will go forward. In a statement, the teachers' union says they're hopeful for serious bargaining over those days. As for the province, Education Minister Stephen Lecce released his own statement calling on the OSSTF to cease the job action. You can find more information on the strike and issues at play online. Just head to cbc.ca/Toronto. The Ford government is pitching co-ownership as a way to fight the provincial housing crisis. They released a consumer guide earlier this week offering tips for how prospective buyers could go about it. To find out more on how it works, Taylor Simmons visited a home in Mississauga built specifically for sharing.
So I'm going to take you through to unit number 1.
Every element of this home near Lakeshore and Clarkson is made with multiple owners in mind. There are large communal spaces, but also 4 sectioned off units.
So everyone has a 4-piece bathroom, which is private.
Leslie Gaynor is the sales rep for the home. She also owns a company that provides advice to those looking to co-own.
This is a really great way for people to buy property and support each other.
It's an option the Ontario government is also encouraging. They released a guide earlier this week looking at innovative housing options amid a housing crisis. Cheryl Bradby helped design the Mississauga home. She also lives there.
I was concerned about aging with dignity and community, and we do not provide very good housing for older women. I wanted to get into the market, and there was no way for me to do it otherwise.
I'll take you now to the common space.
But of course, the arrangement isn't easy.
The very first challenge is to make sure that you're ready to live your life in a defined relationship that is defined by real estate as opposed to marriage or family. You have to be ready to borrow money as a whole group, so there's some financial nakedness.
Gaynor says the government could make it easier by changing zoning laws and the Mortgages Act to help groups borrow money. On that, the Ministry of Housing would only say it's cutting red tape.
Well, there's challenges in living with anybody, isn't there? You know.
For anyone considering the move, Bradby's advice: first, write up a good contract, then
get in a community and make sure you like each other and just deal with the issues.
This home is listed at a cool $2.35 million, so not for everyone, but for those unable to find a space to call home, advocates say sharing is at least something to consider. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Folks, you're going to hear about this later, so I might as well fess up now. I'm not even going to introduce Colette right now because we're at an event this morning and I forgot to introduce
You remember who
my
I am?
buddy. Hi, Colette. Yes. We'll explain later. Take it away.
You're forgiven. Almost. You'll be forgiven. Hey, how forgiving is this when we've got weather so nice, our temperatures above seasonal, almost 5 degrees, not quite, but close to that. Anyway, at this time of year, we should just be over 1, and we were just over 5 degrees today. It's the unofficial high. So we did very, very well. They're a little bit mild for our overnight low, too. And then the current temperatures, they sit like this. So St. Catharines, you're still at 4 degrees, 3 degrees Hamilton, Mississauga, Toronto, Kitchener a little cooler there, and Markham at 1, 2 for you guys in Oshawa. And we've got this system, I've been talking about this the last couple of days. It's a lot of moisture that's coming up from the southeastern U.S. that is going to be tracking in here for Saturday. So out ahead of it, these are just a few little sprinkles. A lot of this not even necessarily reaching the ground. You might just get a little bit of a spray, but there isn't much to it yet. This fills in a little more significantly in the overnight hours towards dawn. And what we may see is a little bit of freezing drizzle first before it turns into primarily rain, and then a chance for a bit of brief freezing rain on the back edge before it becomes some wet flurries once again. In terms of the amounts or accumulations we might see, I'll get into that in a little more detail coming up. But for tonight, 1 degree, still mild, Dwight, for tomorrow with the high of 3 degrees. But things change even more, you knew they would, into Sunday.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
The race to determine who will succeed Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer has began. The official rules for candidates aren't out yet, but Ontario MP Erin O'Toole told some colleagues he intends to run. Others are also jockeying for a position, and there's plenty of discussion about the qualities a successor must have.
I certainly am of the belief that it should be someone more progressive this time around, yes.
We need to have someone who will attract Canadians to us. And the best way to do that is to have a bilingual candidate.
I've had a lot of people encouraging me to consider running for the leadership, so over the Christmas season, I'll certainly take it under consideration.
Gladue, for one, is ready to drop the fight against the carbon tax if she becomes leader. Among the other possible contenders, former interim Conservative leader Rona Ambrose. She has been mum about her plans. Former Progressive Conservative leader and Cabinet Minister Peter MacKay says it's too soon to take such a big decision, but he says it's no surprise that Erin O'Toole is serious about the opportunity. In the UK, Boris Johnson has secured a big election win on his promise to get Brexit done. He got a victorious welcome back to 10 Downing Street after meeting with the Queen. Renee Filipponi is tracking developments. She has the latest on reaction to the Conservative victory.
It was a morning of celebration as Boris Johnson returned to 10 Downing Street with a decisive victory off the back of a simple message.
An overwhelming mandate from this election to get Brexit done, and we will honour that mandate.
That message resonated in long-held Labour seats that supported Brexit. This is where the Tories focused attention during the campaign, capitalising on frustration in winning voters over.
I voted for Conservative. I've always voted for Labour, as my mum and dad did, but this time it's Boris, because I believe he can do it, he can take us through.
And it's voters like that Johnson thanked today.
Thank you for the trust you have placed in us and in me, and we will work round the clock to repay your trust and to deliver on your priorities with a parliament that works for you.
Historic victory for Johnson and a devastating loss for Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn.
Obviously very sad at the result we've achieved.
He announced he won't run as leader in an election again, but won't step down right away.
I will stay here until there has been somebody elected to succeed me, and then I will step down at that point.
MPs will return to Parliament next week to vote on the Brexit withdrawal agreement. With a majority now, Johnson should have no problem getting it through. But even once Britain leaves the EU at the end of January, it's really just the beginning. There will be a lot of details to figure out, including negotiating new trade deals with global powers and the EU itself. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Canada's first national human trafficking hotline has only been in operation for 6 months and has already been contacted more than 1,000 times. I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, we speak with a survivor who says how this hotline might have helped her while she was being trafficked along GTA highways.
It is happening everywhere, all along the 401, the 404, Highway 11, any major route, any city, any town. There's someone that's being trafficked in your backyard for sure.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
If you are getting on a flight next week, heads up, you could be eligible for a payout if your flight is delayed or canceled. The federal government's second round of passenger rights rules kick in on Sunday.
You miss time, money, so that's great.
It's great. I don't know. I think the whole point of delays really messes up people's vacations, and in terms of money spent on flights and everything, I think the reimbursement would be well needed for the people. Right?
You know, you have business transaction, you know, appointments, family. So yeah, there should be a compensation.
If the delay or cancellation is within the airline's control, a large airline will have to pay $400 for delays between 3 and 6 hours, and up to $1,000 if the flight is stalled for more than 9 hours. They will also need to provide food and drink and means of communication like free Wi-Fi after a 2-hour delay. If you're delayed overnight, the airlines are on the hook to pay for accommodations. The new rules also stipulate that airlines have to, at no extra cost, help see children under age 14 near their parent, guardian, or tutor. 55 people had a special graduation today, becoming new members of the Toronto Fire Service.
Can't wait to get that first call. Very eager to get going. It's been a long 18 weeks for all of us, but we all should be proud today, and we're excited that it's finally here.
The ceremony recognizes their comprehensive training, with all graduates completing firefighter, inspector, and public educator qualifications. The newest members speak 18 different languages, including Mandarin, Ojibwe, and Sign Language. And just over 40% of the class identify as female, a visible minority, or a member of the LGBT community. It's been a busy 6 months for people working at Canada's human trafficking hotline. More than 1,000 people contacted the hotline in just 182 days. Most of the calls coming from our province. Talia Ritchie spoke to a survivor who says the hotline could have helped her.
It's very lonely, right? And you don't know what's happening, and I didn't know what was happening to me.
Caitlin Bick says her journey to recovery began after she was pulled over by police with her traffickers on the highway.
So we drove. So it was my trafficker who, at that time, I identified him as my boyfriend and his friend. We drove to Calgary. And I remember we got arrested in Marathon, Ontario. The bottom line is it is happening everywhere, all along the 401, the 404, Highway 11, any major route, any city, any town, there's someone that's being trafficked in your backyard for sure.
And on highways like this one, you could be driving alongside victims of sex trafficking who are being transported from city to city. These highways act as corridors, moving victims around so that the traffickers aren't detected by police. And that's why a hotline that could be reached from anywhere, anytime, was needed. And after just 6 months, the hotline has already been contacted more than 1,000 times.
And many victims and survivors who are being transported from city to city don't have their family around them, don't have people they can trust around them. So in many cases as well, they're also victims of extreme forms of violence or threats. So they may be isolated. They may be unsure of who to call.
The new hotline is a tool to help victims, but also anyone who wants to report a tip. It's completely confidential, and the center hopes eventually data they collect will help develop solutions.
We think it's important to collect the data so we can actually determine in generalities what types of human trafficking are happening across the country, what are the indicators of human trafficking, specifically where the incidence of human trafficking is happening across the country, and how we can provide information to law enforcement in the future and hopefully dismantle trafficking networks right across the country.
I know for myself, my traffickers made it very clear that what I was doing was illegal and I will go to jail. So the police were not really on my radar.
Caitlin says if there was a hotline when she was being trafficked, maybe it would have helped her.
Wow, if that was around when I was being trafficked and I was all alone in my hotel room and I was able to hear about it or find out about it or have someone tell me, it would have made a difference.
Toronto Police's human trafficking enforcement team says the tips coming in from the hotline are making a difference. They've helped speed up some investigations. And while victims are often too afraid to reach out to police themselves, the hotline can help get tips to police without putting the victims at risk. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
8 years ago today, police raided this home in Hamilton, breaking down the door, traumatizing a woman and her 5 children.
Everything happened so fast. Next thing I knew, there was something dropped at my foot and there was smoke. We were coughing. There was people running through our home. I could hear my kids upstairs screaming.
They've now settled a lawsuit against police. I'm Lorenda Redekop. I'll tell you about a connection their lawyer found to a police officer in jail for another case.
It's been exactly 8 years since police raided the home of a Hamilton family, pointing guns and handcuffing some of the children, but it was the wrong house. The family recently settled a lawsuit against the Toronto and Hamilton Police Services. In the process, their lawyer discovered a connection to a disgraced cop already behind bars. Lorena Redekop has more.
8 years later, the memories are still vivid. Faith Markland was just 8 when police broke down their door at 5 a.m. Her mother, Pamela, was home with 5 children.
I could hear my kids upstairs screaming. Just a total nightmare.
She was most concerned about her autistic son.
He's a runner, and the door was blown wide open. It was cold. He was only in a diaper, and I thought, if he runs out the door, it's over. Or if they shoot him, it's over.
Details of the settlement are confidential. Their house was raided as part of a joint Toronto and Hamilton police investigation into a drug gang. The family's lawyer got access to a Toronto police officer's notes, part of what led to the search warrant. Mostly they're blacked out, but they show he spoke with Hamilton officer Craig Rathowski, who reported suspects going into that address.
It's our position that was a fabrication, and that was misinformation, that a court was misled in a search warrant.
Rathowski is now in prison. A jury found he was helping the criminals he was supposed to be investigating in exchange for cash. This is where it happened, and a few hours later, it was all broadcast on the local TV news. The family hasn't lived here since.
Police officers broke down their door, threw in a flash grenade, came in with semi-automatic rifles, which were pointed at the family members, including children. The family was traumatized. They did not feel safe in their home.
The family would like an apology from police.
It would mean that we're recognized as people, not just some black woman living in housing, blah, blah, blah. It would really mean a lot. It would show that they respect us.
Hamilton police wouldn't comment, saying the case has been settled. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Hamilton.
Volkswagen's plan to plead guilty to some more than 60 charges in Ontario court was put on hold today after a lawyer asked the court to hear victim impact statements first.
They admit and will plead guilty that they imported 128,000 illegal cars that polluted the air. But with the Crown, they've managed to lump those charges together into just 60 charges, not 128,000 charges.
As far as members of the public being impacted by these offenses, of course they are. But this is the classic thing this is the classic role that the Crown plays to represent the public interest. And we feel we've done that throughout.
The German automaker Giant is facing the charges for trying to cheat emissions testing 4 years ago. This came after an Environment Canada investigation which begun in 2015. That's when Volkswagen admitted to installing software in some of their vehicles to cheat emissions tests into thinking the cars ran more cleanly than they actually did. The judge will rule on whether or not to allow victim impact statements next Thursday. In the last few weeks, Akeem Aliou sent a lightning rod through the hockey community, speaking out against racism he experienced. Well, today he spoke to youth hoping to skate their way into a future. His message, one of hope. Greg Ross joined them on the ice.
He was only on the ice with them for about an hour, but the bond Akeem Aliou says he felt with this group of kids was instant.
I know what it's like to be in their shoes, and obviously this hits super close to home. I didn't grow up with much.
And like these kids, Aliou immigrated to Canada at a young age. They're part of a group called Hockey for Youth that introduces the game to kids who are newcomers to Canada and live in impoverished neighborhoods.
It makes me dream of being like him one day. I felt like he was my big brother, you know, coming here and training me too.
All I want to do is kind of raise awareness to minorities, which I think is lacking a little bit.
And like these kids, Aliou immigrated to Canada at a young age. They're part of a group called Hockey for Youth that introduces the game to kids who are newcomers to Canada and live in impoverished neighborhoods.
The message that I'm trying to send here is in the fact that we need to be more inclusive. We need to bring more minorities into our game, and I just think it's going to make our game that much better.
Last month, Aliou spoke out about racism he experienced as a player in the Chicago Blackhawks organization. He accused his former coach, Bill Peters, of using racial slurs. It cost Peters his current job with the Calgary Flames. It also emboldened other players to speak up about inappropriate behavior they had experienced at the hands of coaches.
The coach is the power in the room, so there's always going to be some sort of that, but hopefully we can wind that down to a smaller scale and see more respect going both ways.
It also led to a meeting between Aliou and NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. He hopes to continue working closely with the NHL to make the game more inclusive and safer for players.
The goal right now is to be as collaborative as we can with the league. Where that's going to go, I'm not sure, but we're just trying to bounce ideas off each other of how we can make things better.
And while Aliou wants to continue working with kids to help them chase their dreams, he still hasn't given up on his own. He says he's in the best shape of his life, and at 30 years old, Aliou believes he still has a few more years left to try and get back into the NHL. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ontario Green Party has scored a victory at Queen's Park. It's the first piece of legislation passed. The bill will mean that drivers who park in electric vehicle charging stations will be fined $125 if they aren't driving electric cars.
I was parking my electric vehicle the other day, and a gentleman pulled up, and there were non-electric vehicles parked in all the other charging spots, and he started complaining to me that the government has to do something about this. And I put my arm around him and I said, "Don't worry, sir. I am doing something about this. Wait and see." I mean, it's a historic day to have a bill that, the Green Party helped co-sponsor, pass third reading in the legislature. And I think it says a lot that, if you're willing to work across party lines, you can get things done.
The same $125 fine will apply to electric vehicle drivers that park at charging stations but aren't using it. The new changes take effect immediately. All right, Colette, what do you have for us? TGIF, we're looking for a good weekend out there.
Well, I'm going to give you a nice evening tonight.
It's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start. And beyond that, things get a little bit messy as we go into the weekend, Dwight. I am the bearer of some news about this system that's coming in tomorrow. It's going to make for a very wet day, kind of sloppy on the roads, and maybe even a few slick spots. So let me take you through it. Moving in overnight, a little mixed precipitation. That potential is there, even a tiny bit of freezing rain before it really changes into what will be mostly a rain event for tomorrow. Winds will be increasing as we get a little further into the weekend, and so then that's going to make it feel cooler. Our temperatures will come down, but the winds will be significant to make it feel cooler. And our temperatures into Sunday, that's where we have to start thinking about, even in the afternoon, feeling like -7, -8 degrees or so. So the temperature right now, it's mild. This is why I say this evening, not a bad night, 3 degrees. Yeah, we've got a lot of cloud cover out there, but we're not really seeing much from the system yet. It kind of moves in closer to dawn. There is an exception around the Niagara region where we're getting a little slice of this moisture coming in. Light stuff for the most part, but still a little bit just kind of out ahead of the main system that's moving towards us. And we'll see how that's going to track through, because very important with the timing here. Generally, we do fine till after midnight, well after midnight, when it will really begin to fill in as we go towards the morning hours. Getting into some of the pinks and purples here, some wet flurries mixing with rain showers could be, this is the area, maybe a little bit of freezing drizzle, freezing rain as it comes through after some patchy fog overnight tonight, then changing primarily to rain for the GTA anyway. And by 1, still there, eastern sections over towards Oshawa and Whitby, you're still going to be experiencing this Pickering and beginning to change. Freezing rain risk again, although it should be relatively short-lived, and then some wet flurries and light wet snow on the backside. I say light because in most cases it will be, and into Sunday we should get some sunshine, although a few flurries off some squalls that will set up. But I say light in most cases because to the north, with those snow squalls that will set up in addition to the system, a Barrie area, you might be seeing over 10 centimeters of snowfall coming through that region. So that's certainly something to take note of. Overnight tonight, mild readings 0 to about 1 degree, and then the cool down Sunday with the winds, it will feel much chillier than 0. Into next week, Dwight, I just want to leave you, I have to mention that Monday night we may see a little snow system pushing through here too.
Well, we are nearing the official start of winter, so it's appropriate. Thank you, Colette.
We're getting there. You're welcome, Dwight.
I was home, didn't hear anything or notice anything, checks his bag if it's going to fit, and then he rides off.
Shopping online for those gifts this holiday season may be much easier than heading to the mall, but it is also making your home a target for thieves. After the break, how communities are teaming up to stop porch pirates. Online shopping has made life easier for many, and it turns out that includes the thieves. All those packages dropped off at people's doorsteps have become easy targets for theft. Now some community groups and small businesses are stepping in to help. Cameron McIntosh explains.
Watch this, completely out in the open in the middle of the day.
He has a duffel bag, and he picks up the package, and it's not even
nonchalant.
Yeah, and it's not even that quick. And it's quite a big box.
Darren caught it all on his doorbell camera. We're not using his last name for fear of other thefts.
I was home, didn't hear anything or notice anything. Checks his bag if it's going to fit, and then he rides off.
So there you are, you're watching a video of a theft at your house.
Yes, it's scary and sad.
Making it worse, 36 hours later, it happens again. Even with a camera, it's hard to keep an eye on your front step at all times, so that has some small businesses and community groups looking to offer something a little more secure. It's not just the so-called porch pirates. Even Canada Post's community mailboxes have been targeted. A study conducted for FedEx found 29% of Canadian online shoppers have had something stolen. In Winnipeg, this community center has set itself up as a safe drop. For a small donation, they'll accept and secure your parcel.
We just think it will make our community feel safer, and that's what the community center is about.
Similar idea at this North Winnipeg supplement store.
Hey, Barry.
Victor Janis is all for it.
We had a neighbor that their house did have something stolen, and they said it was within about 15 minutes.
We don't want anybody's Christmas present stolen or a holiday present stolen, so it's a great way to, like my dad always says, if you can do a little to help a lot, why not?
Darren, who managed to get his stolen goods replaced, isn't giving up on online shopping, but now will probably get it delivered to a local safe drop.
It's good for me because I know my package will be safe, but it's good maybe to meet small businesses.
It's certainly better than watching someone just walk off with it. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There is a bomb in Centennial Park.
It's not just Oscar buzz pushing Clint Eastwood's next film into the headlines. Richard Jewell tells the story of the man initially accused of the bombing at Centennial Olympic Park in 1996. But there's now controversy about the way Eastwood told the story. Eli joins us with the details next.
Be their best friend. I was.
And nobody's bothering you, right?
Well,
In 1996, a bomb attack in Centennial Olympic Park killed a 44-year-old woman and injured more than 100 other people. It is infamous not only as a terrorist attack on American soil, but also for the way the media treated the man who first discovered pipe bombs on the park grounds. His name, Richard Jewell, and his story is the focus of a new film.
I do want to help y'all on law enforcement too. There is a bomb in Centennial Park. You have 30 minutes.
The film is called simply Richard Jewell. It is directed by Clint Eastwood, and already there's controversy about how Eastwood tells this story. The movie doesn't retell what happened in Atlanta. Instead, it falls under the umbrella of being based on true events. Eli Glasner will have more on that part for us in a moment, but let's begin, take it from the top. Where does the story of Richard Jewell start?
So we actually meet Richard Jewell a few years before the Atlanta Olympics. We see him working in a law firm. He is a great worker, but shy, kind of reclusive guy. One of his co-workers, a lawyer in the film, played by Sam Rockwell, nicknames him Radar because he's so prescient. He always knows just what you need. Jump ahead a few years, and there is Richard Jewell getting closer to his dream. Finally working, not so much in law enforcement, but getting closer, working as a security guard. On that night, there he is in the crowd, music concert, and yes, he sees that suspicious-looking backpack. The other cops don't want to do anything, but he forces them to call it in, and just as they start backing people up, it goes off. It could have been so much worse, but he is a hero for a few days until the FBI, now under a lot of pressure, have an interesting theory in this case. Let's take a look, starting with his lawyer.
Richard, you're a national hero now. Thank you, sir. But I was just doing my job.
always look at the guy who found the bomb, just like you always look at the guy who found the body.
Jewel fits the profile of the lone bomber.
A frustrated white man who is a police wannabe who seeks to become a hero.
We're running it.
All right, so there's all the characters. We've got Kathy Scruggs, the reporter who got the scoop of this century, and the FBI agent who decided that the guy who found the bomb was also the man that they're interested in.
Let's get to what the controversy is all about then when it comes to this.
And it's really about the depiction of this reporter played by Olivia Wilde, Kathy Scruggs. Now, this is a real woman, and she really did break this news first for the newspaper in Atlanta, which was then very quickly picked up by CNN and the rest of the world. Now, I have to say, the way that they portray Kathy Scruggs, I mean, she's a woman who is detested by the newsroom, who is not above actually using her feminine wiles to get a story through. And we see, I mean, the film clearly implies that she was using sex in order to get that source, to break that story. Now, what's happened is the woman who she's playing is dead. She passed away in 2001, but now her newspaper is actually threatening to sue Warner Brothers, Clint Eastwood, the screenwriter. They're asking for a new disclaimer to be put in front of the film. But also fascinating, the actor herself, Olivia Wilde, just yesterday went to Twitter with her defense. Let me show you some of what she is saying. She talked about her respect for journalists, saying she has a deep respect for all the essential work of those in the field, particularly today when the media is routinely attacked and discredited, and regional papers like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution are disappearing on a daily basis. But let me show you, this is her explanation. The perspective of the fictional dramatization of the story, as I understood it, was that Kathy and the FBI agent were in a pre-existing romantic relationship, not a transactional exchange of sex for information. So she's saying there was some history with those two characters. Now, maybe there was in the original script or the original cut, but the film I saw, I've seen that scene twice now, certainly doesn't support that interpretation.
So what do you think about the film, first of all, and about how this reporter is then portrayed in it?
I think the way the reporter is portrayed is irresponsible, and we can talk about that very scene where John Hamm, as the agent, leans in, whispers in her ear, and then she responds by saying, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to go in your car or get a hotel room? Wow. So, I mean, transactional, I think, perhaps. What's also unfortunate, you look at the real story. Kathy Scruggs, some say she was one of the more responsible reporters working on this. There's nothing to suggest that she was in the practice of trading sex for sources or for tips. And so then where does this come from? This comes from artistic license. It comes from a screenwriter who I think is fitting a story to the view of Clint Eastwood, who, as he has been getting on in years, he's got more of a conservative outlook, I think you would say, and so I don't think it bothers him in the age of so-called fake news to have a reporter seen as this villain. But the other real problem and real unfortunate part is that man there, that is Paul Hauser. He does a wonderful job playing Richard Jewell and gets the contradiction of this guy whose life ambition was to become a police officer, who believed fervently in law and order, and then the FBI targeted him, and he was such a supporter that even as they're carrying evidence out of his mother's house, he's practically opening the door for them. And so he got those contradictions. I would give this movie a higher star rating, but given the way they treated Kathy, I now have to go back and think, well, what of Richard's story has been embellished? And so in the end, 3 stars out of 5.
Happy Friday, sir. Thank you.
Too.
As part of our Sounds of the Season campaign, CBC Toronto is helping raise funds and food for the Daily Bread and other GTA food banks. And today, my CBC colleagues and I teamed up with local schools for a little friendly competition.
Volunteering today by collecting food, you're making that right to food available to everybody who deserves it. And I'm just, your parents, I'm sure, are very proud of you. I know I'm proud to work alongside you guys today, and so are the CBC.
Well, I want to congratulate the schools. The fact that you're here, it means you did a great job helping the Daily Bread food bank, right? Yes! So thank you for doing that. We're going to have a little fun contest here. We get really competitive at the CBC. Get up here.
All the food that you're sorting today has been donated generously from people in the public. Your job is to make sure that that food is safe to eat and also that it goes into different categories.
When children are going out to events like this, we don't make it a competitive event. We're kind of making it a competitive event today at the Daily Bread Food Bank. So we've got 6 schools, each of them vying for that wonderful honor of saying that they sorted the most amount of food alongside CBC personalities.
They're the only ones that say large box on them, and they have to be large boxes.
Guys, I got boxes here. You guys don't need boxes? Let's go, let's go.
Teamwork, teamwork!
Sideways. There you go, there you go. Perfect. M-C-M-U-R-O-S-C-A. Let's go.
Today at the Daily Bread Food Bank is the real Sounds of the Season. It is youth getting involved with the Daily Bread Food Bank and sorting all of the food that is coming in this holiday season, and it's a real joy to absolutely see.
This is so intense.
First of all, you guys are all winners because you were out here today. So well done, Sorting 1,486 pounds of food was Sherwood Heights. The #1 team this year, having sorted 1,626 pounds, all the way from Cardinal Leger. It's mind-blowing that you guys got over 8,000 pounds sorted. It is amazing. We are so grateful at the Daily Bread, and we'll see you here back next year, all right?
And Maribel Taruk is like Tom Brady. She keeps winning. So far, you've helped CBC Toronto raise more than $630,000 for the Daily Bread Food Bank. You've also helped raise almost 16,000 pounds of food. Thank you very much. And if you haven't donated yet, don't worry, you still can. Either donate online at cbc.ca/sots, or you can drop off canned goods here at the Broadcast Center. We collect donations until the end of the month. All right, Colette, we had some fun today, didn't we?
We did.
There were no missteps. Everything was great. It was a lot of fun.
Well, just one little tiny thing that happened. So if you make a mistake, because it's important we get it right, we get food sorted properly, they make it fun. It's all in good fun. There's a little penalty box.
Yes, we had a penalty box.
The whistle blows if you do something incorrectly. Well, I had to put our friend Dwight here in the penalty box.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, you guys have a picture and everything?
Yes.
Should I tell them why, or you want to tell them why?
I think you told them earlier in the show.
I introduce Colette on the show every day, and I introduce all the CBC personalities that were there today. And who did I forget, folks? What? My friend Colette, and I apologize as I sit there, sorry, in the penalty box.
You know what I like to think? It's because I had the little elf hat on. I'm amongst all
like
those
the
young
students,
children.
Yeah, you look like a little kid. That's it.
I blended in.
We're going to end it right there. I agree with that. That's our show for tonight. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. I'm so sorry, partner.
Oh, you're forgiven. How can I not forgive you?